Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Earwax. I'm Colin, and today we're going to be doing a review of the brand new album by The Smile, Cutouts. Alright, guys, so this is the third full-length LP, second to be released this year by Radiohead's spin-off side project, The Smile. I don't know if they appreciate me calling it that, but it's my video. The Smile consists of two of the core members of Radiohead, so Tom York and then Johnny Greenwood, and they are joined by Tom Skinner on drums. Now, I understand that Tom York has gone on record and said that, there's no plans, current or future, for Radiohead to get back together, and he and Johnny Greenwood are pretty much focusing on The Smile as their main project right now. It's not that I didn't like the previous two The Smile albums. They weren't bad by any means. There was just nothing about them that really made me want to go back and listen some more. A little bit of context, I am not someone who thinks that Radiohead is just the greatest band of all time. I think their three albums of Kid A, OK Computer, and In Rainbows are absolutely phenomenal. I think those three albums are untouched as far as experimental indie rock goes. The rest of their discography is hit and miss for me, and I feel like both the previous two The Smile records kind of fell into that category of some songs I did really enjoy, some I weren't super feeling, and neither of those albums really warranted multiple listens from me. I felt like there was just other stuff I'd rather listen to at the time. And so when this album came out, I was really hoping, or at least when this album was teased and from the first few tracks I listened to, I was hoping they'd go in kind of a new direction, just as far as really leaning heavily into the psychedelic sound that they were kind of teasing on the last couple of albums, or maybe just go straight up experimental electronica. I wasn't really sure what to expect, and I have to say I'm still kind of just not feeling it. It's not that it's a bad album, and we'll get into the track by track breakdown in a second here. It's just there's nothing in particular that's really jumping out at me. There's a couple standout tracks for sure, but I feel and this is my opinion about, call it whatever you want, side projects, spin-offs, new groups from well-established and extremely popular musicians, is that you have to make whatever new direction you're going in or whatever new project you're putting your effort and time into stand on its own 2 feet and sound unique from what the vast majority of the population knows you as. So that's why some of my absolute favorite side projects of all time sound nothing like the members' past work. So I think a great example of this is Dreamcar. So Dreamcar is one of my favorite side projects of all time. It's got a lot of the members, I think almost all of the members from No Doubt, and then Davey Havok from AFI on vocals. And what they did was create sort of a new wave 80s indie post-punk album, and then 3-song EP that came out earlier this year. And they sound nothing like No Doubt or AFI, and it's an amazing album. So maybe my issue with The Smile has always been it doesn't sound different enough from Radiohead for me to feel like it warrants being its own thing. So yeah, anyway, I don't know. It's just, I may be alone in that. I feel there's a lot of side projects, new projects out there from well-established musicians that just feel like they could be continuations of their old work. And at that point, why call it something else? I don't know. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into the track list. So the album opens up with the track 4 in Spies. Now this is a pretty slow burner. It's got some distorted strings mixed in with some playful and restrained synths. They're not too in your face. The vocal performance that Tom gives on this, at least I'm assuming it's Tom, I don't know, it might be Johnny, is not like amazing. It's not bad. It's just there's some weird like choices they make in like the delivery and the melody and how they're like singing it. The instrumentation feels like it should be backing a Panos Cosmatos film or like short film. Like I just kept thinking of the Viewing, which was the short story he did for Guillermo del Toro's short stories, the Cabinet of Curiosities by Guillermo del Toro. I don't know. It's not bad. It's just like it doesn't feel like a complete song. It's a lot of just like the same melodies kind of building up. It does get a little bit of variation like towards the end, but it feels more of like a soundtrack that like then Tom is singing over rather than like a complete song. And I have this same criticism for a lot of tracks on this album. It's not bad. Like this is not a bad song. It's not a bad way to open the album. It definitely sets like the atmosphere and the mood very well. It just doesn't feel like a complete song for how long it is. Anyway, then we get into Instant Psalms, or Instant Psalm. This is interesting. It's kind of like a trippy psych pop piece. I do think Tom's vocals a little bit better in this. If not, like his vocals are a little restrained. I mean, not that he's ever been like a belter, but this feels a little bit more like classic Radiohead. The drums, the percussion on this are really fun. The bass line's super fun. It's a good song. It's a fun song. If anything, it's a little boring. It's a little one note. Again, it's not bad. It's just not something that's like getting me super excited. That being said, though, it then goes into the next track of Zero Sum. Now, this is kind of a wild song. So it starts with this really chaotic and kind of like almost off-tempo synth lead. And then when the drums and bass come in, it's very like classic Radiohead sound. Definitely feels like this could be like a B-side to Kid A. And there are parts of this song that I really, really like. I mean, there's parts when like the synth lead gets a little bit more subdued, a little bit more in the background, or even like kind of stops altogether, and you're being led by the bass and the drums and like even like some subtle guitar work here and there. It is really, really good, and I think the vocal delivery on this song is incredible, but then there's also other parts where the chaotic synth lead comes back, and it's just a little jarring. It doesn't feel like it fits, which is not, and again, inherently a bad thing. I'm a very big fan of like experimental music, psychedelic music, prog, a lot of subgenres where you've got sounds being mashed together that may not necessarily always work well or like seem like they work well, but somehow they do. But I don't know. In this song in particular, there's definitely a couple of moments that like the synth lead was so jarring, it took me out of like the experience of listening to the song. But then like towards the end, the synths just like completely go off the rails, and it's, I don't know, not necessarily ruins, but like I do think it's holding it back from being like a really, really strong standalone track. From there, we get into Colors Fly. Now this has a pretty classic like Eastern psychedelic guitar intro lead melody. I mean, it definitely sounds like something out of Goa or like the Middle East, but with like some more, you know, psychedelic playfulness. The vocals on this have some echoes as well. This was the first track where I was like, all right, now I'm feeling it. Now I'm getting something that doesn't feel like a straight up Radiohead song, but definitely still feels familiar in a sense that like I know it's something that I'm going to want to listen to over and over again, even though it's a new track. The drums on this song are super, super fun. They're very like subtle. They're a little cheeky, a little playful, but definitely like kind of hold their own against the, you know, really strong instrumentation of like the guitar and bass guitar. It's probably one of, if not my favorite song on the album. From there, we get into Eyes and Mouth. This one has some more kind of like off-tempo synth leads over a really solid rhythm section. I think the bass guitar and the drums really like kind of lead this song forward. There's some vocal parts I really, really like. But I do feel like this song could have used a little bit more edge. Not that Tom or Johnny. I don't know too much about the drummer, but like, not that Tom or Johnny ever been like hard rockers or like, rock stars, but like they definitely had some edge and some attitude in some of their early stuff, and I do feel like that's missing throughout a lot of this. Again, it's not obviously not Radiohead, it's its own thing, but I definitely, like on this song in particular, I feel like I could have used a little bit more power or a little bit more like swagger in there. They're playing and they're singing, but it's still a fun track. Again, there's some vocal parts on this that I do really, really enjoy. From there, we get into Don't Get Me Started. Now, the synth on the majority of this song, but especially right in the beginning, reminds me of like some later Simian Mobile Disco type sounds. It's got that sort of like experimental indie electronica, indie dance sort of vibe. It's not bad. I do really enjoy like that sound and like the sound structures they're using on this song. The problem is that they don't really do anything with it. It just kind of keeps going, and I kept like waiting for something else to happen, and it just felt like it was constantly building and building and building, but like subtly, and then never really like reaching anything. They're right around the 4-minute mark. The percussion drops out and it gets like more dreamlike and like restrained and a little bit ethereal. And then about the 5-minute mark, the percussion comes back and kind of kicks back in. But for like a 6-minute song, like nothing really happens. I don't mind long songs. I actually really love a good long song as long as you're doing something with that time. I don't need the same like tempo, beat, melody just drawn out over 5-6 minutes if you're not going to have it lead anywhere. And I feel like there's a couple tracks on here that I definitely get that from, where there's not enough variation and there's not enough like structure to the actual song for it to warrant the length that it is. Then we get into Tiptoe. This song has got some like haunting piano that's mixed in with like brief moments of swelling like strings, and the vocals are breathy and airy and beautiful on this song. But again, there's not much variation, and it feels like just an extended intro to another song. And it's not bad, it's kind of boring, and there's nothing that's bringing me back to want to like give this track repeat listens. Next is The Slip. Now this has got some like kind of trippy and spacey vibes to like the drums and the bass guitar, which again I feel like are the strongest points on this album front to back. Is like anytime the rhythm section is leading the melody and like leading the song, it is one of the songs I ended up really enjoying, or the ones like I wanted to keep going back to. Admittedly, they are the ones that also sound the most like a Radiohead track, but what are you going to do? The vocals on this song are, kind of drawn out, and, Tom York's signature sort of like crooning, melody style. When the guitar does eventually kick into this song as well, about halfway through, really gets going, and I think it's one of the highlights from a guitar aspect on the album. This feels like, at least definitely compared to the last couple of tracks, this feels like a complete song, like an actual, song structure built into the writing process, which I do appreciate. I don't mind experimental stuff. I don't mind, I enjoy it when people go outside of traditional songwriting structure, as long as you're like doing it well and you've got like a meaning and purpose behind it. And I feel like the last couple tracks just didn't. And then from there we get into the last couple tracks, starting with No Words. Now this one's fun. So it starts off with this sort of like 80s synth lead that sounds like it should be coming from like a video game or like a horror movie, and then it like quickly evolves into just a groovy little like indie rock jam, just like straight up old school 90s, late 80s, early 90s like indie rock. And it's a nice breath of fresh air, and it is definitely one of the songs that I ended up enjoying the most on the album. I think they did like the last 3 songs of this album were a super strong way to close it, because from there it gets into Bodies Laughing. It has a nice sort of like little Latin feel to the guitar work. It's got again more of kind of a slow burn, but it does does pick up. Definitely, again, still kind of feels like a Radiohead track, and it's a solid way to end the album. It's not, again, it's not groundbreaking. I think the 2 tracks previously were better, but I'm glad they decided to end the album on a song and not just an extended outro, which I feel like a few tracks on this are. So overall, guys, like, it's not a bad album. I just don't know why it's necessary. And there's certain parts of it for sure that I really enjoy. There's definitely some parts that I don't. I just, again, I if you're gonna do a separate project, a new project, make it sound different enough from what you're like really known for that it can be its own thing. I don't know if I need a slightly more experimental psychedelic sounding Radiohead, especially when they did experimental stuff back in the 90s. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'll go back and listen to the other albums again. Maybe there's something I'm missing on them. I'll give this one probably a couple more listens as well. I'm feeling a B- on this album. There's nothing like really gripping me and wanting me to continue to go back into it, but it's not bad. If you like Radiohead, especially like some of their later era stuff, if you think Tom York is a god and can do no wrong, you're gonna enjoy this. I'm not like the biggest Radiohead fan in the world. Again, those 3 albums I think are incredible. Outside of that, they're pretty mediocre, and there's nothing about this or the rest of the Smile that's convincing me otherwise. That's going to be it for me. As always, let me know down in the comments what you think. If you like this album, if you think I'm a moron, let me know. If you haven't checked it out, go listen to it and then come back. And as always, I'll talk to you later. Peace.